you can make it too. Like I said, I started in a tire shop and changing tires and selling oil changes. And now I'm at one of the larger high-tech companies in Silicon Valley. So, you can make it there as well. It's hard work, and it's perseverance, and it's pushing forward, and it's knowing that you have the capability to do it. Building your net worth and building your portfolio, it's not hard.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 210. Clark, what's going on in your world? How you doing?
Dude, doing pretty well. How are you?
Doing great, man. Just getting excited here for Halloween. You get dressing up this year?
I don't think this year. Are you?
My kids are obviously getting dressed up and stuff, and we've always done these family costumes until this year. The kids wanted to do their own thing, so my little guy's going to be Mickey Mouse, and my daughter has moved between 3 different costumes already as various Disney princesses, so we've kind of destroyed that. I guess we could kind of go with the roll with the Disney theme, but I'll probably just put on one of the former costumes that I've rotated through. I think one year I was Daddy Shark.
Which is what?
Well, Daddy Shark, and then I've got I don't even know, I've got a Santa outfit, and I've got all sorts of stuff in the costume closet that we've done over the years, and let's put something on. What did you dress up as last year, the year before?
Oh, I don't remember. We did like Flo and Jake from State Farm, the insurance. We did guess 2 characters. We did, I don't know, a couple other things.
Before we had kids, my wife and I did I was Uber and she was Lyft, and we won a couple costume contests with that. That was pretty funny.
I like that.
Back in the day.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. We'll see. I'll throw something on this week a few times probably for the kids and entertain them and get a few laughs, but speaking of kids, so I've been doing a bunch of stuff related to planning for my kids, and obviously we've got a new baby here on the way. One thing I've been looking into is just planning for college and whatnot, and 529s and ESAs. And one thing that I came across and learned, which is kind of ironic given that I've spent so much time in this world, basically those are the 2 main things that vehicles you can use to save. And 529, just for those who don't know, are typically state sponsored. And sometimes if you're in a state that's got a state income tax, you can get a deduction for contributing to those. But the states kind of have control of those plans and investment options and whatnot. And you can add a lot more, contribute a lot more. There's a little bit more flexibility. Whereas the ESA, you're capped at $2,000. They've got income limits, but your investment options are typically a lot more free. And up until recently, it was really, 529s in some regards were a lot more restrictive. They still are a little bit, but they've opened those up and rules have changed a lot. But one thing that's interesting about the ESAs that I learned this week, or you and I were talking about a little bit, is, you've got these income limits, 110,000, I think it is, and 220 if you're married, that you're not able to contribute. But there's a loophole in the IRS, and I didn't know this until I got on the IRS's website. I know it's a little nerdy, but it says organizations such as corporations and trusts can also contribute regardless of their adjusted gross income. So the loophole is if you're an individual and you make over 110 or as a couple 220, you can't contribute to your child's ESA, but there's backdoor ways, one, gifting them the money and letting them contribute, or if you just contribute through a corporation. So granted, it's still capped at $2,000, but anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. I feel like as complex as the tax code is, there's always backdoor ways and different ways of approaching things. And I know that some of these things are up for debate and voting here in Congress, and whether, Roth rules are going to change and whatnot. But it's interesting, I think, as you dig into these and experience these things. I mean, ESAs and 529s I never worried about. too much until I had kids. And Clark you're not worried about that stuff right now, are you yet, Clark?
Yeah, no, thinking about it, I mean, it seems like the Roth stuff's probably going to get squashed or they don't quite have the votes. But since you've been doing the research, just big picture, what's the differences or the biggest differences that people should be aware of between education saving accounts and 529?
I think the big thing, at least in my mind, is just the investment flexibility and then the limits. So ESA, I mean, you can't put any more than $2,000 in there and you can't contribute after a child or a minor essentially is 18 years old. So you're kind of restricted in that regard. Whereas the 529s are more of a free for all, and it's not a free for all exactly, but there are some limits, but the limits are extremely high and you can essentially front load those. But the investment options to some degree are a little more restrictive and it's a state sponsored deal. So those are kind of the two main things. And obviously just it depends on your situation and whether or not you think your kid's probably going to go to college or not, how much you want to fund those and whether you want to, participate in one state or another. And you can participate in any state's plan really, not just the state you live in if that state has one or not, but the tax deductions get a little dicey if you're looking for that specific. So it's something you definitely got to do your research on and maybe even consult an advisor depending on your situation. But those are the two main things, high levels, the limits, the income limits on the ESAs and then the investment options between the two, I think are the two things to be most aware of between the two different kinds of plans.
Besides just the 529s and the ESAs, you could do a Roth IRA for your kid, right? So obviously they have to have some sort of earned income or be old enough that they're actually working to have the earned income, but you could contribute to a Roth IRA and then they could withdraw money for that for education expenses tax-free. So that's just another option when you're considering the 529 and the ESA.
Yeah, totally. And that is a good point. And that's something that I plan on doing with my kids down the road, just to provide them more flexibility in the event that they don't go a traditional route or in the event that they get scholarships and they don't need some of this money that is, held in traditional accounts. Because you really got to use it for education or it's really expensive to withdraw and not use that. But at any rate, interesting topic, interesting discussion. It'll be interesting to see how these things and the Roths take shape in Congress and voting and whatnot over the next few months, but we'll see how it goes. So this week we have John. He works in the auto industry. He has a net worth of $1.7 million, $670,000 in public security split up between a 401k, about $500,000, and brokerage account, about $170,000. He does have some individual stocks. He has about $1 million in real estate equity, one rental, and then primary residence. We discuss his desire to build up his rental portfolio and the importance of career management. It's a super good interview with John. Really looking forward to this episode. Last week we had Dion. He has a net worth of $1.25 million, all of it in real estate. It's about $80,000 in passive income and works for a nonprofit that helps place CDL drivers. It's a great American success story, so go check that episode out. That's episode 209. Once again, if you'd like to ask a millionaire a question or us a question, you can go to our website or send us an email. We also have, if you want to voice in a question, we'll play that on the episode. Also, we have a survey at the bottom of today's episode. If you go fill that out, that'd be great. Help us cater some of the content of the show to better serve the audience. Without any further delay, let's get into the episode with John. John, do you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. So yeah, I got kind of an interesting story that I was excited to share with everybody. We've talked a little bit about is my background's in the automotive space and specifically just more so in like the service side of the industry and maintaining and repairing cars, which doesn't sound all that exciting, but I actually went to school for it and got a formal 4-year degree for it, which is not something that a whole lot of people in this industry think of. Your Jiffy Lubes or your tire repair places, or say maybe your dealership service advisor. Most of those guys have just went in and started to work and just worked their way up. But I decided I wanted to go into college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And at the time, you have your high school advisor, career advisor, and I went to her and she said, "Do what you love." And I have mixed feelings about that, and we can always get into that later, because I might have given myself other advice had I been on the other side of that table knowing what I do now. That's hindsight. But she said, "Do what you love," and I loved cars. I had always modified them as a kid growing up, and it was something that I was passionate about. So I went to school and I got a double major in automotive technology and business management. They kind of had blended degrees where you could go for the design side, the purely mechanical side, or the business side. And I always had a businessman's mindset, so I went for that. And then coming out of college, we were in the Midwest area at the time, and I did probably the worst thing that I could do, but I was excited to make money, and I came out and I just took the first job that was offered to me. And it's actually kind of a funny story because I came home one day and my mom told me, she goes, "Hey, I got a interview for you at a tire shop where we go to get our car serviced." And I had just got done with college. I was like, "Hey, great. That sounds awesome." And so I went in and they saw that I had a formal 4-year college degree, and they were very excited about that. So they put me in as a service manager, and it was good money at the time, but it was definitely a clock in, clock out type of work. So from there, I've moved over the course of the last 15 years. I started in the Midwest and I moved there through dealerships. And also for about 4 or 5 years, I ran one of the larger classic car, muscle car restoration companies in the United States. And I was a general manager for them. So that was my first real opportunity in senior management. And then my wife and I got an opportunity about 7.5 years ago to take a job out in California. And so we moved out there, which was really exciting because I remember once visiting San Francisco and we were just walking around Golden Gate Park and we said, "Can you believe people live here?" And we always knew that we would love to go out if we had the chance to. So when the opportunity came up, we jumped on it. We moved out. And at that time, I was just looking for any opportunity that would help support the family. So I took on another dealership opportunity as a service advisor, and it was good money. It was a stable job. It was a good opportunity at the time. And it also had a really good schedule, which allowed me to get my real estate license. I thought at the time that I might want to try to do some real estate work on the side because it was a very flexible schedule. It was like 6 out of 7 days on, 6 out of 7 days off. So I was hoping I could work on the side as a side gig and start doing real estate. But I found that to be extremely competitive, especially out in California. So I never really actually utilized it in a professional sense. But from that dealership, I moved into a small startup, also in the automotive industry, as an online car dealer. And I was working on their back end as their service manager, managing the repairs to the vehicles as they came in before they went up for sale. And then from there, for the last couple of years, I've moved into also in the automotive space, but more of a high-tech company in the automotive space. But I tell that whole story to just let you know that I've worked my way up. I didn't come out of college with a degree that allowed me to jump into a high-paying job in a high-tech company. But more so, I've spent the last 14, 15 years working extremely hard and networking, improving myself, and building up my resume in order to get to the position that I'm at today. So now I'm working at that high-tech company, and like most of us, I'm work from home as we're shelter in place. So I'm currently back in the Midwest, loving the support system of the family helping with our 2 kids.
Well, that's awesome. And it's quite amazing. I think probably you're one of the first people that we've had that's been in, an automotive or tech and, merging those two, which I feel like just in general, a lot of the headlines, especially with Tesla and stuff right now, we're gravitating towards that, right? We're getting more, autonomous technology in our vehicles, and we're getting, there's so many startups in the space. Just here in Austin, we've got a truck company that called Highland that's highly valued, and it's just down the street from my house. Actually, I had no idea it even existed until about 3 months ago. So it's kind of crazy, but it's awesome to have you on the show, and we're glad you're here. So, John, what is your net worth today?
Yeah, my current net worth, it fluctuates a little bit because I do have some real estate in there. Actually, a large portion is real estate, but right about 1.6, 1.7, give or take.
Okay, and how is that broken up?
So I have roughly 670,000 right now. That's in investment funds. That's a mix of 401k and traditional brokerages, and then a little bit in a REIT and some 529s. The 529s, I could go either way, but it is money I've invested in. It is growing, so I see that as part of the net worth. And then on the property, we're a little bit heavier on the property, excluding the two cars. We're sitting at about 2.3 million in property, and of that, we have roughly about 1 million in equity.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. So, when did you buy that house? Just curious.
Yeah, so the most recent one is a rental property. So I'm definitely extremely passionate in my plan, my plan for financial independence. I'm not so sure about the retire early part, but for financial independence, to build up a rental portfolio. So that one is a recent purchase of about 4 to 5 months. And then the primary residence, which is the large chunk of that, I bought roughly 3 years ago. And California real estate being what it is, we did get in it right. And this is kind of where why I mentioned the real estate license. I acted as my own agent, my own buying agent. And that helped because we were really pushing our budget to buy this house. And I was able to give back my fee as the buying agent to the owner. And so that kind of pushed them over the edge. My cute 6-year-old at the time, she helped sell the deal, but that also helped sell the deal. And so we bought that home for right about 1.5, and both on Redfin and Zillow, and considering the home across the street just sold and it's not anywhere near as nice as our home, it's valued roughly about 2, and that's conservative. So it's gained about $500,000 in value in the last 3 years, but it did that also roughly the 4 years before that as well. So in the 7 years that we've been in California, that home's gone from about 1 million to 2 million.
Nice. So John, I want to come back to your career, but let me first just dig in a little bit more to your allocation here and your net worth. So about 650,000 in the markets, right? Between a variety of different type of accounts. How much of that is specifically in retirement accounts?
Good question. That is roughly going to be probably about 400,000. No, sorry, 500,000. 500,000 out of the 670 401ks.
Okay, and then after that, I assume the other biggest bucket would just be investment accounts. How much in I think you mentioned HSA, right?
Actually, I don't, and I've often looked at that. There's that account, and then I've also looked at a mega backdoor Roth, which we have as an option, but I haven't delved into quite yet. We just got that this year. So my main 2 other accounts is a Trade King brokerage account, and that one has about 75,000 in it. That's all in individual stocks. So that's more my play money, where I just put something on the table and hope it hits. And that's actually where I probably had most of my big wins. But then I also have a wealth front account, which is about 93,000, and that one's done very well for me as well. I appreciate how they diversify in kind of broad market-based, international, domestic, and emerging market funds.
Yeah. And then you have one rental, right, outside your primary residence?
Correct. We have one rental.
And was that a home you used to live in, or did you buy it as a rental? How'd you get that?
Yeah. So we actually, I've been in kind of the real estate game for a little bit, just with friends. So we have one investment opportunity, I'll call it. I don't know what to exactly call it, but we invest working capital with a company up in Northern California where they flip homes, and that returns a 10% per year return on our investment to him for that working capital. And so hopefully the next home that I'm going to buy is through him, where he has done some flips actually out in Ohio. So I'm looking to purchase $200,000 homes, give or take, early next year, that he's done flips. So that's to say it's through somebody I know. So the one I currently purchased, also we have a friend that purchased in that same area, and they knew the agent. They knew the property management company. We knew the area, and we knew that there was a whole bunch of very large companies that were coming in that area. So we also knew that the potential for growth and rapid appreciation was very likely. And we actually happened to get in right at the right time. We got in 4 or 5 months ago for 250, like 257, I want to say. And the home is currently sitting at as an appraisal on Redfin, but also by 2 homes that are identical to it, right behind it, that are selling, and one's up for sale. Now it's appraising for about $300,000, and that's only over like 4 or 5 months. It's gained roughly about $45,000 in value in that time. I think it's due to the pandemic and just due to some lucky timing on my part.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? During the pandemic, how much the real estate market has boomed in the single family home, especially in areas outside of the city. Pretty crazy when you start looking at how much home prices have gone up.
Let's take a quick break with the episode with John and talk a little bit about our sponsor today, BetterHelp. Oftentimes we talk to millionaires about happiness. We talk to them about their lives, their investments, what drives them, where they want to go in their future. Sometimes they have roadblocks. One way to help with some of those roadblocks is BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a professional counseling company done securely online. You get paired with a licensed professional counselor who specializes in assisting with depression, stress, anxiety, sleep, trauma, family conflicts, grief, and more. Some of these things we all experience on a daily basis. It's more affordable than traditional counseling, and it's easy as a phone call or an online meeting. And anything you share stays confidential. So go check out BetterHelp. As a listener, you'll get a 10% off your first month of counseling. So join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health and head to betterhelp.com/unveiled. And thanks BetterHelp for sponsoring the show today.
So, John, let me just circle back to your career here, because I think yours is an interesting story. And you mentioned that you worked hard at this career, right? 13 to 15 years or so, I believe you said. How were you able to move up in your career, increase your earnings? One of the things you mentioned to us before we started recording is it's not always what you know, it's who you know. So just curious to get your take on career management here.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say for the first 10 years or so, that was just the work hard and prove myself component of things. Everywhere that I went, it didn't matter what I was doing. I could be selling tires, selling a timing belt, doing a free oil change, because that's what the package came with at a dealership. It didn't matter what I was doing. I gave it 110%. I always did. And through that, I was always viewed as one of the best salespeople or managers within the company that I was at. And so that helped not only my finances, that helped us, grow our income because a lot of it was commission based, but it also just grew that network of people that knew me and respected me. And so I think there's the 2 types of networks. There's the type of people that you can reach out to and say, can you help me get a job? Do you have any openings? Do you know anybody? And then there's also the people that you can call on that says, hey, I'm applying for this job. Can you represent me? Do you mind speaking on my behalf? And so those first 10 years, it was more so, do you mind speaking on my behalf? I'm looking to take this next job, this next position. Once I got out to California, that's a pretty tight-knit area. It's like a little city that exists in its own ecosystem. I'm trying to think of the right word, where a lot of people know each other. You have a lot of companies that are fighting for talent, such as, Facebook, Rivian, Apple, Google, Waymo, Cruise, Tesla. You have all these companies that are fighting for talent. And so a lot of people know each other. And if you do really, really well and you prove yourself, people will reach out to you. And so that's actually what happened at my most recent 2 jobs is I had people reaching out to me, asking if I would be interested in taking a position. So I actually, the current position that I'm in, my old boss's boss left the company and returned to an outside country. he actually brought me in and suggested me for the job, and I wasn't even really looking at the time. And so that was the biggest opportunity that I have. And then also when it comes to, unfortunately, I will say there is ways that you can go about asking for more money. You can negotiate at your current job. Unfortunately, it's not the best way. I've realized that through a couple positions that I'm at where you can ask and they can say no. And if you don't have any leverage, if you don't have any other options, maybe you got a few money, but if you're not ready to leave, you really can't do anything else. But the best opportunity you have is moving positions. And so that was how I greatly increased my income, probably 2.5 times in the recent position. Outside of equity. That's just base and bonus, was by properly negotiating. And it's scary as hell because you're on the phone and you have this job that you really, really want and you don't want to throw it down the drain. But that's also the best chance that you have to ask for what you feel you deserve. And I got it. They came back.
You're saying the new job.
Correct. The job I'm at currently, I negotiated very hard because at the time I was a fairly high up in the other company. I was a general manager, and I had a lot of equity in the company, and there was a lot of opportunity, and it was I was taking a big risk to leave, and so I asked for what I wanted, and they came back and they fought for me, and I have an amazing boss. And he fought for me at the current job and got me almost exactly what I was looking for, which was roughly about a 2.5 times increase.
Wow. Well, good for you. And just to reiterate what Jay said, I mean, congrats on the success. It's amazing. And you've managed the career incredibly well. As much as you're comfortable sharing, John, and normally we ask this at the end, but I think it fits in now. What's been the range of your household income since you started working?
Sure. So it's going to vary very widely. And the reason for that is not only job changes, but also location changes. There is a different cost of living between the Midwest and California, and it is represented in the pay. But when we started out roughly 14, 15 years ago, both out of college, my wife and I were both making probably, starting out about $50,000 each. So maybe a total gross income of 80 to 100, somewhere in there. And that grew a little bit over the next 7 years we were probably making about 120, 130 by the time that we left the Midwest. And then moving out to California, we immediately went from about 130 to, I want to say probably about 240 between the two of us. And then we went to roughly from 240 to my last position. With the change of my last position, that went to roughly about 270. And now this year we will make like 450, give or take. Yeah. So that was, and the big change was just my job.
For you, man.
I was making less than I probably should have been for a while, but it was the path to success. You did what you got to do, right?
Yeah. So does the increase in salary change how you live, or has it along the way as you've gotten different salary bumps?
So yes and no. So I say not at all right away because first off, I found, we'll say, the FIRE movement, which I haven't totally jumped on board with, but it's definitely what inspired me. The simple path to wealth and choose FI and so on and so forth. That's what inspired me. And I love the saying of, it's not how much you make. It's not how little you spend. It's about how much you make, how little you spend, widening the gap between the two and investing the difference. And so that's part of it. But it did change a little bit because we wanted to buy a home. So we did stretch ourselves for that home to get into that $1.5 million home. Obviously, we could have stayed in an apartment longer, which would have actually not been a good financial move for us, but we didn't know that at the time. So that did change. But no, besides that, it hasn't changed anything. I bought a wholesale BMW X5 for my last company for $7,000 because I had the back end access to that opportunity, and I will drive that BMW until it falls to pieces, and then probably after that. And we own a Toyota Sienna minivan, a swagger wagon, and I'll drive. We've bought that outright, and I'll drive that until the wheels fall off too. So, I guess it changed. What it did change is buying for other people. Probably, so I'll end up spending a few $1,000s for Christmas, or, if we go and we order something, we order some clothes, and my wife is like, hey, I'm going to order some clothes. I need this. I haven't had it before, and I need to replace it. And it's like, great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how much is it? It'll be $150. Okay, that's fine. We don't think about those purchases as much anymore. So that has changed, but we're naturally frugal. So it doesn't come close to what we make by any means. We probably invest about 50% of our income.
So as the income's grown now, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, 50%. As the income's grown now and it continues to grow, I mean, what's next for where that money goes? You said you wanted to buy a house. Are you going to invest in something specific? Are you going to save for a big purchase? I mean, what happens now with all that? I mean, if you doubled your salary, you'll almost double your savings, give or take. I mean, a higher tax rate, obviously, in California, but what's next here?
Yeah. So I've always kind of had the age in mind. So I'm currently 38, and I've kind of always had the age in mind of about 47 to 48, where I would like to at least go to 80%, or at least retire in my mind, that I would only be going to work just because I liked it. And in order to do that, I think it's a couple pieces. One is, for the next roughly 8-9 years, I want to be purchasing 1 to 2 rental properties per year. The first one was a little bit more expensive. It was about $250,000, as I mentioned earlier. But for these next, say, 7-8 years, I'm hoping to purchase right around 80 to 100,000 single family homes, or maybe 160, 200,000 if I found a duplex, and try to keep to roughly the 1% rule, which the next 2 homes that I do have my eyes set on out in the Ohio area, they're roughly 80, 90,000 each, and I do know that they rent for about 800, 900 a month. So those fit within that. So I'd like to get that rental portfolio built up, and then continue to invest as I've been investing in the stocks, but adding more so to the rental portfolio. And then around that 10-year mark, I'm hoping my business is in a place where we can be a little bit more permanent remote work. It might be there now, but definitely in 10 years as the company grows, my hope is that it's more of a regional, nationwide operation, and I can work from anywhere to sell the home in California and take what'll hopefully be about that 1.2, 1.3 million in equity at that point, and go somewhere much lower cost of living, potentially like Texas or the Pacific Northwest, which is not a lot less, but still could buy a home outright and not have a mortgage payment. Yeah, and then, kind of just go from there. But that's kind of the general plan right now.
So, John, as you've gone on this journey and you've built up this net worth, how do you go about, you say you invest 50% of your income. Where does each dollar go that comes in? Do you get that match, then invest in real estate, or do you invest in real estate first, pay off your house, obviously? Like, how does that kind of tree work for you?
Yeah, sure. So we've never done the Roth, which is probably a shame on me type of thing, but I've just never done it, and I might not at this point because I'm focusing my dollars elsewhere, even though I understand the power of that tax advantage there. But right now we are maxing out both mine and my wife's 401ks. We both get a match of roughly 4 or 5%, but we still max out to the federal limit of the $19,500 each. That's number one. And like I said earlier, there might also be an opportunity in one of these upcoming years, potentially even next year, where I flex some of my money that's going into like Wealthfront or just individual stocks instead into the Mega Backdoor Roth, which I have through my current company, because then we can do that tax advantage count up to, I think it's like 57,500 is the max that you can put in there, but I probably wouldn't go all that way. But to answer distinctly to the question, 19,500. After that, I I looked at Mint. What I did, and I did this about a year and a half ago, is I looked at Mint and I said, okay, what is our total spend each month? And what is our total income each month after the 401k is out? And how much money do I have left in between? And then I took that and we invested roughly about 5% into, we'll call them moonshots. So I've had Tesla has been in my portfolio. Apple's been in my portfolio. Starbucks is in my portfolio. Alibaba. We had a big win this year. We had a 600% return, which was not my stock pick. Unfortunately, so I don't get bragging rights to that. That was my wife's. That was EXPI, which was a virtual-based real estate company that also does instructional design software, which is why my wife knew about it. And that one I bought for about $7, and it's now $60 a share. So that's been a big win. So we have about 5% there. And then past that money, I had been investing roughly about $1,000 into Fundrise, which is also kind of a risky bet, but I just wanted to diversify into a little bit into a REIT. That one hasn't returned all that much, but I just continue to do roughly about $1,000 a month. And then we've had $5,000 a month going into the Wealthfront traditional brokerage. And the idea here is we're investing in our retirement first, and then secondly, we're just going for some small amount for big wins. And what we can do with that money then is if we get a big win, we just, we usually sell off our initial investment first and then just play with the proceeds. Or if we're planning on a big purchase like a rental property, we roll it into that. And then the traditional brokerage is also, besides my, the real estate portfolio, which we're trying to build up, that traditional brokerage is to help bridge the gap between 48 to, 59 and a half, 60 years old when I can start drawing on my 401ks.
So in terms of pursuing early retirement or having that option, your plan to bridge that gap between withdrawing from your retirement accounts is real estate and or potential brokerage account or equity in your companies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not counting the equity in the company because that could be a windfall. That could be in the millions, right? Or it could be nothing. There's really no telling there, so I never really count those. But yeah, to bridge that gap, it's more so going to hopefully be the real estate portfolio, which I'd like to get up to about $100,000 a year in real estate income, and then whatever else is coming from just the traditional Wealthfront brokerage account, which I'll start drawing on once I need to.
So in terms of where you're really trying to head, is it that 100K mark? Is that kind of your goal, or is there a net worth target you're trying to hit?
I mean, there's a number in my mind that I kind of got from the, take what your expenses are and multiply it by 25 and then pull on 4%. But that one's always in flux on what that really means. And also if we sell our home in California and go somewhere else, then that cost decreases huge because we're putting out about $7,500 a month for the home. So we go somewhere else and that can be cut in half. But I am looking at it, about $3 to 4 million in the net worth. But the $100,000 in rental income, that would allow my wife to retire. And then from there, I can just pull back to like 80% or so and work remotely. And I think that will be set for at least, 4, 5, 6 years after that. And I'll be pretty happy with that.
Nice. Yeah, good for you. Because I was going to ask, with the income coming up as high as it is, right? You're going to get up to 450 or whatever you'll be at, close to that. This net worth is going to start booming here pretty rapidly, right? So, is there a certain number that you say, "Hey, I'm hanging it up"? Or
I like what I do.
Passive income goal. I mean, just because Jace asked about fire, we talked about fire before. Any sense of that, or not so much? Just take it as it goes.
Right now it's just take it as it goes because I enjoy what I do so much, and it's also such a good opportunity and such good income so I love it, and it's great income. So I'm going to continue to do it while I can, but at some point, my kids are 8 or 9 and 6 right now. In another 8, 9 years when they're both teenagers, I'm going to want to start spending more time with them and traveling with them more. So, we get to 45, 46 years old. And especially if my company has, that stock is worth something, I might just say, you know what, I'm done. I'm gonna pull back and I'm gonna travel with my family. And my wife also really wants to she wants to be an entrepreneur of something. So maybe she gets that opportunity somewhere along the line, and I just let her bring support us instead of me.
Yeah. Is your house paid off? I can't remember if you said.
No, neither one of them is paid off. And it's just because we have such a low interest rate right now. We're at about 3% interest rate, 30-year fixed, that I have no desire to rush that. The other rental property I want to say we owe about 190 on the rental property out of the 295 that it's worth, and the California home we owe roughly about 1.1 out of the appraised 2 million.
So you won't take any money and just rush to pay that off because of the lower interest rate.
Exactly. I can make that by purchasing another rental property, or investing in the market, at least in the long run, to get a 5 or 6% return over the course of even 3 to 5 years in the market is not all that hard to do. So paying down a 3% loan doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jason and I have talked about this several times on the show. We talked about this when we were interviewed on other shows, but this is something that we have seen consistently and constantly on our podcast is most millionaires are not hurrying to pay down their primary mortgage. And I just think it's interesting because oftentimes I think Dave Ramsey, amongst others, sells that that's what they do and sells that that's what they should do. And certainly we've had several on the show that have, right? There's no doubt about it. And so a couple hundred millionaires and a small percentage of them have paid off their primary home. So it's just an interesting tidbit and something that we continue to see. So, John, when did all this start? How aggressive were you investing when you first started your job, or is this something you learned along the way?
Yeah, definitely learned along the way. The majority of my net worth has been over the last, I'd say, 3 to 4 years, unfortunately. And that's one of the big mistakes that I made. For the first, I'd say, 8, 9 years, none of the companies that I worked for had a 401k. And so I didn't do anything. I said, I don't have a 401k. So there's nothing for me to invest in. So I'll just save money, right? We'll just stick it in a savings account. And I just hate myself for that, because I can see the compounding interest opportunity that I had over the course of those 8, 9 years. But I got into it really late, and there's a saying that I love that kind of talks to this, that says, if you look around and your circle of people around you does not inspire you, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. And that was, I had a lot of great friends for, before California, but a lot of my friends were similar mindsets as me. They were happy. They were set. They weren't doing anything special. They weren't investing. They weren't looking for what's a big opportunity. How do I increase my net worth or anything like that? And so neither was I. And it wasn't until I got to California and started to build a network of people that were very, very driven and looking to better themselves and looking to, better their financial future, that I started to get into it. So I have a couple friends around me. One I look up to just because he has 3 or 4 rental properties, Airbnbs. He's got some very, very nice cars, which that's his choice. I'm not sure that I would go that way, but he's got a, very, very nice Porsche. And, I would love to have that one day, but he's done very well for himself and he has that opportunity. And then I have another friend, and this is specifically when it started. I have another friend. I remember we were sitting having dim sum with the families, and I had asked him what he had been up to, and he's like, "Oh, I've been listening to a lot of FIRE podcasts." What the heck is FIRE? And this is 2.5 years ago, give or take. And he was like, "Oh, it's the concept of financial independence and retire early, and Mr. Money Mustache and the 4% rule." I'm like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And so he explained it to me. He's like, you take this and you take your cost of living and multiply it by 25, and then that's what you need to get to an investment net worth. Then you can pull on it at 4%, and you live off basically what the account is making, and never drawing on the principal, and you live happily ever after. And at the time, it was just such a vague concept to me, but I really got excited. And I'm the type of person that once I decide to do something, I do it. There's when I wanted a rental property, it was in the pandemic. I decided I wanted a rental property, and within like 2 months, I owned a rental property, and I was driving to from California to the rental property, like a 12-hour drive, to go look at this property and sign the paperwork and everything like that. And I do it. So as soon as I want to do something, I just do it and I lock onto it, and I have 120% of my energy goes to it. And so I started listening to Choose FI and Paula Pant and Millionaires Unveiled and, so on and so forth, with all of these different shows. And I kept getting more and more and more and more excited because I realized there is a few different ways you can go. You can go stocks, you can go equities, you can go real estate, you can go do your own business. But in general, there's a couple basic concepts that anybody can put into play. And so once I just understood them just a little bit better, I started putting those into place. And so I was making sure I was maxing out the accounts, and I opened up the Wealthfront account, and I started looking at property, and I started really looking at our budget and just looking at some of the reoccurring payments that I could reduce. And I was just told my dad yesterday, we had gone on a trip in October of 2018 together, and I had just hit 7 figures. And I was so excited. I remember showing it to them and saying, I just hit $1 million. And now October this year, I was at 1.55. So over the course of 1 year, it went up $500,000. And a lot of that helps with the equity of the home, but there's other things that play there. So I just, as soon as I saw it and I saw the opportunity and I started watching that number go up, it just became a passion for me.
That's awesome, John. I want to ask a little bit about the circle that you've grown and some of the friends that you mentioned. You said you had friends that weren't on this path, and then you basically got some that were on this path. How did that happen? How did you make this circle of yours a lot tighter and people that had a more similar mindset to you? Where did you find them, and how did you become friends with them?
Yeah, I wish I had like a good answer for this as far as this is what you can do. Unfortunately, I think it almost happened a little bit organically just due to the environment that we put ourselves in. So maybe that's the answer. It's the environment. We moved out of the Midwest where good people in the Midwest, since we've been here, we walk down the street, and every time I'm out walking, somebody crosses next to us and they tell you good morning or hello. That doesn't happen in California. People are moving 1,000,000 miles a minute. But the change in environment did start to, I got to meet a lot of my kids' friends through school, and that's where all these came from pretty much is the kids' parents that we got to know. But because of the environment that we're in, instead of them working, as a police officer or as a teacher or as a CPA, like my dad or yourselves, a lot of the bread and butter type of jobs, you get a lot of people that are working as engineers or CFOs or VCs or, things like that. And then just through those people, you start to grow the other networks of people that they know, and you start to become friends with them. And that's really, it started to blossom very, very quickly from there. So just changing my environment that I was in the mindset of the people around me because of that environment, that's what really started to drive that.
Did your parents have any influence on the way that you handle money today?
Yeah, of course they did. To some point at least. Not on the investing side. I've talked to my dad about this a lot, especially since we've been home recently this time and, talking about getting on this show and talking about investments. He never did investments. He did his 401k. That was it. I think he invested in one other stock and it went terrible for him. And so they never did anything special, never had any rental properties, never did anything like that. And they never talked to me about money. He never told me what that he made, what my mom made, how they managed their money, anything like that. But he did, both my mom and my dad taught me the value of hard work. And so that has helped me a lot in my career. You do want to work smart, but it also helps to be the go-to person, that people know that you can be accountable, and they know they can hand something to you and you're just going to execute. So he didn't specifically teach me about money, but he taught me the value of a dollar, and he taught me the value of working hard. And because of that, that has helped me be as driven as I am now. And that's been a part of getting me to where I'm at now.
So, John, I know we're getting short on time here, and I want to ask you a couple rapid fire questions. But just before that, real quick, I'm curious on your motivation now and how that shifted through the years in terms of growing your income and growing your net worth. What's your big motivator now? Is it to retire early? Is it to have this flexibility? Is it because it's a game and you want to grow the net worth? I mean, what's the deep motivation here for you, and how has that shifted as your net worth has grown?
Yeah. I think I've realized that we have one life to live, and we only have so much time. And I really want to have time in my life to spend with my kids and spend with my wife, and to travel, and to get to enjoy life some. And so right now, when I am able and I have the opportunity and I have the energy and I'm in these prime years of my life, I really am focused on building that net worth and building that rental portfolio and that passive income. So at 45, 46, 47, 48, I can start to back off, and I can really enjoy the time and get to know my family and get to spend more time with them and traveling. Assuming COVID goes away and we all get to travel again one of these days, there's a lot of places I want to go. So I think that's a big part of it. It's just time with the family, flexibility in our life, and the opportunity to get to enjoy life and traveling.
Yeah, good answer. Good for you. So how old were you when you became a millionaire?
I would have been 36.
36. Okay. And what do you spend a year, annual household spending?
That's a tough one. I probably shouldn't be. But unfortunately, the way I've set up Mint is it tracks my stock spending as well. If I take the stock spending out, I would say roughly, give or take, it's probably right around $120,000 a year, give or take, with the mortgage.
Okay. And then have you ever used a financial advisor?
Never. I'm actually trying to I actually just told my sister to break it off with her financial advisor, because she can do it herself.
Because you can do it for her?
Because she can do it. It's easy. The simple path to wealth.
Yeah. What items or experiences have been worth spending more money on to you?
Experiences, I would say, for one. So that's going to be travel, or opportunities to do something, to go see a really good Broadway show, to go see Hamilton, to spend a night out on the town. Also, food. We're not foodies, but we do enjoy going to a good restaurant, and treating ourselves, because most of the time we're very frugal and we're just cooking up some rice and meat and veggies at home. But we'll go out to like French Laundry, or there's like 53 Michelin star restaurants in California, so in the San Francisco area. So I'd like to start trying more of them.
Well, let me ask. Well, first of all, where do you go to the Broadway shows? Do you come out to New York, or you just do it when they tour?
Just do it when they tour.
Okay.
New York would be awesome, but yeah, I haven't gotten to that level yet.
All right. Well, next time you're here, we'll connect. But what's the most expensive you spend on one of your Michelin star food on one of your restaurants?
Probably about $400 for two people, maybe $500.
Okay. And what's been your best trip? Any favorite trip?
Probably our honeymoon, which was Europe. So we went to Paris and to Italy, Tuscany, and we're looking to go back again here soon after COVID. Either there or Greece we would like to go to, but Europe was the best trip by far.
Well, awesome, John. Thanks for hanging with us. So just in closing here, I know you've given a lot of advice. Any mistakes that you've made, or any final advice that you give to somebody who's just starting out their journey?
Yeah, I would say two things. Is one, you can make it too. Like I said, I started in a tire shop and changing tires and selling oil changes. And now I'm at one of the larger high-tech companies in Silicon Valley. So, you can make it there as well. It's hard work, and it's perseverance, and it's pushing forward, and it's knowing that you have the capability to do it. And also, I would just say it's the investing and building your net worth and building your portfolio. It's not hard. It seems scary, but, take some time, listen to some podcasts, listen to Millionaires Unveiled, hear what other people say, read The Simple Path to Wealth, just hear what these people have to say. It's not difficult. You just need to start. So you can't start too early. I started way, way late, probably about 32, 33 before I really got ramped up. So now I'm trying to get my sister, she's 10 years younger than me. I'm trying to get her on the right path well before I ever did. Because it's time in market, not time in the market.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for plugging our show too. I'll send you the payment on that after the show here. All right, everybody. That's John, net worth of over $1.5 million. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.